What's the word, man? How we feeling?
Shit, I'm good, bro. Blessed, man. You know, we here. We in this space together. Another day. You know, feeling good. You know, life is life as usual.
That's real.
You know.
Nah, that's very real. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
That's good, man. Things are well, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Shit, how you feeling? How's everything going?
Man, life is well. Life is well. If I had to really say that, there's really no way I could kind of like break it down for real. Just things are going well right now. Yeah.
This is the intermission, man.
Yeah.
You know, we've been on this journey, still on this journey, but we've been on this journey for a little minute.
Facts.
You know, we got through about like seven episodes. You know, 7-8 episodes. Man, things have definitely changed since the pilot, I would say.
Yeah.
A lot of things for the good, though, I would say, too.
Yeah.
You know, we hit some challenges along the way. You know, we built some relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we had a lot of good moments. You know, and we're gonna keep having good moments. Man, I mean, it's been a blessing, bro. You know, just to see the impact of everything that we've been trying to put together. And I just think back to a lot of these things that you have said and how this thing is like just bigger than the both of us. You know, a lot of these things that we talk about or we've talked about, you know, people can use them, apply them to their lives. You know, people who are, or not even people, yes, but, you know, like kids, you know, that might be coming up, you know, looking for guidance, you know, people who are in our positions, the same age as us, people who might be older than us, you know, fathers, you know, mothers, people who work, you know, full-time, you know, trying to do something with their life, you know, whatever it might be, like all these different people, man. All these different personalities, man. You know, it's been dope. You know?
Yeah, I would say one of the dopest parts about doing this project with you has been watching how the curation and creation of it has been exciting, you know, to everybody it's come into contact with. You know, I would say it was a bit nerve-wracking figuring out how or when to just do it, you know, but I would say I'm glad that it was one of those things that we really didn't overthink in the moment of doing it. Like, you know, just in the moment of like really creating it, it wasn't just it wasn't a, man, how are we gonna, it was just like, hey, let's do it. Like it was truly just a day where it was just like, all right, let's record.
Let's make it happen.
You know, and I also think, speaking to that, I want to say, I think is as cool as it is to create music, as cool as it is to create, like, there's so many different things we could create. You know, I truly appreciate being in the space where this was something that was created. And I say that because just the timing of it, you know what I mean? Like, podcasts are in right now. And I think
Mm-hmm.
What was dope about it was that we really did. I don't think we really thought about it in that capacity when we started. It was more so just like, hey, let's do a podcast. It was just like, all right, let's start recording ourselves talking, and we're going to interview people. And what was dope about it was another, like, again, was just seeing the excitement about how a handful of the artists were excited about being interviewed and, you know, sitting down with us. And it was just a dope experience. You know, it's been a dope experience, and I look forward to what's going to continue to come from it along the way.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you, man, what do you think was been like the biggest challenge that we've had to overcome? You know, like just like that you think that, you know, just doing this whole thing. Because we've had, you know, our share of, you know, challenges, like things that we've changed as far as like, you know, before the guests show up and the type of timing that we're on and the kind of experience, like you're saying, that we were cultivating, what it was from the beginning and now what it looks like every time now, you know, and the constant improvements that we're making. Like, what has been the biggest challenge, you know, like in real time, would you say, that you feel?
Developing patience. Developing patience has been a very real challenge because there's moments in life where you just want everything to kind of just come together. And this was one of those things that we really, you know, pieced it together like along the way. It wasn't one of those things that it was just, I don't think any interview was really the same, you know, just in the way that we prepared for it and the way that we hosted it, the questions that were asked. I think the audience is going to receive the interviews and are receiving the interviews, right? Because this is the intermission, but I believe they're receiving these interviews and they're probably hearing certain formulas, but at the same time, like, you're hearing differences in just the style in which the questions asked. And I also think that's just, again, like developing the patience for scheduling, developing the patience for just, you know, I know along the way you invested in a lot of equipment, you know, so it was just a process of, you know, again, that's all patience, man. Just waiting, like really just like, all right, figure from one episode is like, we're going to record with this and that and this. And then over time, things change because equipment changes. So again, it was just, I would say for me, from what I've seen and from what I went through on this journey was just patience, especially like on the mic and off the mic.
I feel like you can hear the growth in every interview. Like as I'm going listening back, you know, we're kind of getting into editing mode and stuff like that, and we have been. As I'm listening back, I'm just listening and I'm hearing the growth, because it's like you might have pauses at the beginning, you might have, you know, we have questions ready, but then it's like being even more prepared, putting yourself in a position to, you know, just give the best interview that you can give. Being patient with the guest, like you said, you know, being patient with the guest, whether it's in real time on mic or, you know, these other things such as scheduling or, you know, what have you. But I would say I would have to agree with the patience, but I'm also trying to think. I mean, there wasn't, I feel like, like any really huge ones that turned into setbacks or anything like that. I feel like a lot of it, we really rolled with the punches, so to speak, and really kind of made the best of what we had each time. And we're able to expand on that each time as well. Every time we came back, it was like, what adjustments are we making so we can make this the best that it can be, take it to its furthest potential and then take it further than that the next time, coming back with a vengeance, so to speak. What was your favorite part about the creation of it? Just like you said, a lot of it, we kind of just did it. But like, what was your favorite part about, the actual creation of it, these moments that we're having with all of these different people?
I would say interview the ask the question again.
No, like as far as the creation of the actual interview itself, like creating these moments with all of these different people, like what was your favorite part about that? Because like I know we were speaking on the challenges and overcoming those and, forming patience and stuff like that. But what was your favorite part? Like some of the highlights of this whole journey.
Some of my highlights was probably the initial contact for the interview. Hearing the excitement in some of the guys' voices, or even just seeing how they reacted to it in real time. On one of the interviews that the people are going to hear towards the later part, I would say the later half of the first season, is the interview with TTG Louie. And, that interview was a day of thing, So just, for me, it was just seeing how fast some of the guys reacted and responded to just the idea of, coming to sit down with us. I thought that was just really dope. I thought it also, too, spoke volume to the amount of artists that really could use like a platform aimed to helping them, do interviews or just simply perform. So I thought it was dope to just kind of be in a space where we're attributing to that. What about yourself?
Probably during, even speaking on that same interview, as an example, I would probably just say listening to the stories that so many of these people had to tell and taking away like the important things from them. Like Louis, when he was talking about, selling those oils, those body oils, and how the people that he was around, they didn't want him to like get into drugs and stuff like that. So they offered him an alternate route. And he was able to take away a lot from that, make some money, learn what good business was about, and kind of telling that story and being able to pass it down to the next generation coming up, instead of, all this stuff that's going on out there in the streets, you give them a better alternative. And we were talking about just having like your OGs around, to kind of put you up on game and like, just get you to a better place in life. A lot of that has been lost, with the current generation. So I feel like it's definitely needed. And just seeing that in real time, listening to the story and seeing how it could impact people and how it is going to impact people, like that, it just made me good to see that's like kind of the energy we're bringing to this whole thing.
Agreed.
I thought it was dope that we could just come together, and have those moments. But as well, like you said, like a lot of the people that we sat down with, they were excited. Like they were excited to sit down and chop it with us and, just shed some light, but also get some light. at the same time, you know. So the whole experience, I would say, you know, just trying to take in as much from it. And, you know, just for me specifically that I could provide, you know, me trying to provide a good space for people. Learning to be patient with myself and with others. Learning to just be myself when we're on the mic, you know. And I would probably say that, you know, those things, but just learning to be myself and like letting that shine through. Because like when we was talking with Shorty Drew, you know, like I really felt like, you know, like there's been other interviews where I felt like they was really fucking with us too. But like that one kind of stuck out to me, and like, yo, whatever it is that you do, whatever it is that you put out, you know, just be you, you know, and never worry about, you know, the environment or the people that you might be around. Don't let that force you to shift who you are because of what's around you. Always remain what you are, you know, and you're going to shine in any situation, you know, in any environment. Because one thing that people can't, no one could be you and what you provide and, you know, what you bring to the table. So I would say that, man, you know, just remain authentic, you know, and don't put so much pressure on yourself. Not everything's going to be perfect, especially the first time.
Yes.
You know, so it's like just be aware but relax at the same time. You know, there was a lot of good moments that we shared with everybody. You know, Doe, KB, Shorty Drew, TGG Louie, Mexico, you know, Uncle Jay, you know. And that's just a name, you know, if you had to name everybody. Camo, you know, but Young Peso, 2 O's. You know, all the people that we met with, all the stuff that I learned from them, you know, listening to their come up and, you know, just being a part of it, you know, saying that I was a part of it. And it's only the beginning of many more to come. I just want to keep getting better, you know, so I could keep providing for this whole vision.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, one of the guests that wasn't mentioned that I did enjoy more than what I was expecting was the interview with my brother, with C Buddy. You know, just not really realizing what that was in the moment, or not necessarily realizing what that interview meant in the moment. Even just being able to just sit down with my big brother, you know, and just have that support from a sibling is something that I'm doing creatively. I thought that was pretty dope, mainly because a lot of people don't always get the experience to collaborate with their siblings on things. Then there's also too just the thing about it that just, you know, that's always gonna be a moment in time that we could like look back on, not just as brothers in the realm of like creative, like the creative space, but just brothers in life. You know what I mean? Just being able to have that moment and just again like being able to just have those moments of sitting down with each and every guest, you know. But that one in particular was different because that was probably, I want to say that was the first guest. If I'm not mistaken, that was one of the first guests we had. If not the first guest, like I'm pretty sure that was the first guest. And then, you know, how patient he was with us as we were just kind of and just really in this development stage, swinging the microphone back and forth, you know, due to us just having one microphone stand connected to that one mic. you know, for us to interview with, and just even just over time, just developing again, getting the right equipment. Just like again, it was just even thinking back to where we were then to where we are now, you know. But just even just being able to pause and appreciate the moment and space in which you were in to even create each episode, you know. And I think that's the dope part to be able to do the editing is that again you get to go back and relive those moments in a sense, right? But you also get to relive them with the world, you know. So it was just a dope experience, man. I would say this is probably between third or fifth, you know, rodeo with creating a podcast. And this has by far been the smoothest experience. And I truly believe that is due to having the experience and seeing how you can allow ego to get in the way and just being able to have moments where you can learn how to like fall back and just let your teammate lead and shine. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought that was a dope thing to learn over time, because I would say it was interviews where I even felt like I was like, I probably dominated. Then I was like, the next interview, I was like, all right, let me fall back. Even if it was the realm of like creating the questions, it was like, all right, let me fall back so bro could, you know, have an opportunity just to learn what it is to create the tone for this interview. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where this time around it was just different because it felt like going in, I understood that just like, you know, this principle of less being more. It's not about being that leader that's like, man, I'm gonna do all this. Then I'm gonna just let you watch, or I'm gonna just show you. It was just one of those things where it was like, nah, we just gonna do it together, and you know, we really gonna just take our time with it. Really, the way I kind of think about it is like riding a bike. You know what I mean? Really learning how to ride a bike, and it's just the thing of training wheels and the capacity of that. Like, while this may be my fourth rodeo around or fifth rodeo around with this, I still don't know everything. So it's still giving myself that space to learn new things along the way, but also being able to just like learn what you need to learn from where you're at and with what you have. So just being very understanding and patient to what that process is and looks like over the time that it takes. I would say that's probably something I would do different next time around, is give myself and give us maybe a deadline to get everything in from the start, you know, to have that end goal in mind of where and what we want the finale to kind of end and look like, you know, and even just having that understanding that we may not reach that entirely, but we got very close to that. And I think that's what we ended up doing. You know, it was kind of, we took the motto where it was like building a plane as we were flying it. And we were, you know, we had it on our agenda to interview more than what we got to this season. You know, I thought that was probably the tough thing to do behind scenes, is just make those executive decisions to say, all right, you know, we're going to save some of these interviews for a future season. You know, figure out how to space it out, because that was a dope thing that came over time, was just seeing the interest that came with speaking on this. You know, you say, hey, you got a podcast, and, you know, realizing the different classes and the different types of people that want to sit down with you, you know, and just being able to say, all right, this is realizing that it's something, and having that confidence in the midst of creating it and presenting it to ourselves and to our guests, but also being able to just really kind of see that when you mention it publicly. Even just like today on my way leaving work, you know, I was sitting there talking to my general manager, and she was we were talking about work for like a handful of like, you know, me sitting there. I was probably there for like 20, 30 minutes just, you know, chopping it up with her. And, you know, towards the end of the conversation, I said, hey, I'm leaving to go work on a podcast. She was like, you got a podcast? What do you talk about? I said, well, we sit down and we interview artists and we get to know them. We allow them to tell their story that they may not get to share through music, you know, and just to see that excitement and that reaction, you know, I think is dope too, because for a handful of people that are around us, it gives them an opportunity to see that it's possible to just do it. You know, I think it's a lot of things that people want to do, and some people really don't know how to position themselves to chase their dream. They don't even know how to research the, you know, and sometimes it's one of those things where it just kind of throws you off because it's like, damn. But it's just that reality check that like everybody's playing field isn't the same. Everybody's, you know, resources aren't the same. So it is keeping that in mind that when you are doing it, that again, back to the whole piece that is bigger than you, you know, just the tone that it sets to be a leader in your community chasing your dream in the midst of everything else that's going on in the world. That's powerful within itself. So the dope, again, it's cool to sit down with all these different acts and, you know, but at the same time, it's dope to just see how it all comes together and how it's coming together, you know, and just really leaving that room to see where it goes and grows with time, you know, because we were able to get some things that get some opportunities through this, man, just in the midst of creating this thing. So we can't really speak on all of it right this second, but over time, that's something, a handful of these things we'll be able to share.
It's going to show in time.
Yeah, so I want to ask you, though, like, what was something, you know, in the midst of me just talking for this, you know, tangent, I mentioned some of the things that were difficult for me in the process of going through creating this thing, or, you know, things that stood out to me. What were some of those difficult moments for you? You know, what were things that you may have learned that you didn't expect to learn? I know I just hit you with like 2 loaded questions.
After listening, no, that's good. After listening to what you were saying, I could say, you know, like you were saying, like during some of them, maybe at the beginning, like you were a little more dominant in the space and kind of stepping back and allowing me to like kind of figure it out more or less, to chime in and kind of, you know, be myself with this whole thing. It kind of took me back to this interviewing class. Me and Camo, that's where I met Peso, actually. I say Camo, but that's what we used to call him.
That's dope.
Yeah, it's where we met. We met in this interviewing class, and it took me back to that because that was like kind of where it started, like just the interviewing, you know, in general, like sitting down with somebody, whether it's an artist or whether, you know, it could be anybody. It doesn't have to be something related to music, but forming questions around a topic or around a person, or, you know, just trying to create an experience or an ambiance from the conversation that you have. You know, it kind of took me back into that, and it made me want to get in my bag low-key and just be like, yo, like, you've already done this before. You know, we kind of jumped in with this whole thing, and I felt like I was a little rusty, but I feel like you kind of taking that opportunity to step back really gave me a chance, to kind of take my own step back, but then step back in with a whole new kind of energy. I feel like the first couple episodes, I was just a little quieter. I was a little more apprehensive on how I would approach my questions, how I would ask them, and just giving the guests the room to speak and get their whole thought off. It just allowed me, like I said, an opportunity to, get back in that bag and kind of, it's just really an opportunity, instead of having, taking a back seat to the whole thing and like kind of just letting you do your thing. Like, it's like, nah, bro, like we doing this together. Like, what we here to do. And there was a couple times I remember it's like, like it's just that look. It's like, you're up type shit. And it's like, you got to make sure you're ready, and I feel like that in itself is a skill that you cultivate over time as you're doing this. Even if you don't have, like, we got to have questions ready, but even if you weren't to have questions ready, it's like you got to be ready to adapt and just do something on the fly, like just to keep the conversation rolling, to keep the tone where it's at, or even, shift the tone to something different. Like you have control in those moments, to take it wherever you really want to take it. And when you have the respect and you have the time of whoever it is we're sitting there with, along with yourself as well, it's a big responsibility, but it's worth it for the moments that we create with it, and where we did end up taking it. I also want to give flowers to Bro, because you had mentioned that, and I just wanted to say, Bro's always been there with a lot of stuff at the start, like with music, whether it's this or other things. Bro has always been there to support in those beginning stages and onward from there. So it's like, I just want to make sure he gets his credit for that. Like, a lot of people don't see or want to be a part of the vision when something is in its infantile building stages. And at every turn, he's always been like, yo, what we doing? And that's always been the energy, that's always been the vibe, and that's just him as a person. So I just wanted to say kudos to him and shouts out to him, because he's always been like that, and it meant a lot back then. It means a lot now, just having someone who believes in you just as much as, we believe in the shit that we're trying to do, and even if we're talking about music, maybe I'll speak for myself. Like, I didn't believe in myself with a lot of this shit, and he was a person to be like, yo, keep writing, let's freestyle, let's put on some beats, like always action, because action is what, creates that motivation to keep going, not the other way around. And he saw that from way early on, and he always pushed that. So being able to sit with him and kind of come full circle, it was a blessing, and we're gonna have more of those moments too. I know we are, so I kind of went on a little bit of a tangent, but I just had to give Bro his flowers, man. But other than that, challenges, man. I mean, I'd probably say there wasn't a whole lot. There was these little bumps that we hit along the way, but I wouldn't say there was anything too major. Just learning to be understanding when it comes to scheduling, or when it comes to kind of just making changes on the fly, whether it's like location or timing, and being flexible. I feel like that's something that people recognize. They have recognized, and they're going to continue to recognize it. And that just leads for a really great interview, because we've never walked in when things had to change, whether it was last minute or whatever the case might be. We never walked in with a chip on our shoulder. Whatever happens, you roll with it and you make the best out of it. And I feel like we've always done that, and we're going to continue to do so, so.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it just kind of goes back to how this thing even started in the first place. Just the whole notion of just making the best out of a situation. We started this thing on a random day, a random night. We linked up to really work on music, but in the midst of us actually pulling up, it was just that redirection of focus with energy, because it was just that reality check. Like, hey, man, like, we don't even really know what we doing musically. Like, let's not waste time. Let's capture the moment and do something great, following off that energy that, C Buddy taught us how to have, a TTG Louie taught us how to, really cultivate. Same thing with a Dope Boy the Boss, right? A PB Mexico with just the discipline and just the consistency with being repetitive on having a consistent work ethic, a resilient work ethic, right? And that's what's so dope and so special about just this whole season within itself. Just being able to really sit with a lot of the people that were, pioneers to us. You know what I mean? And are becoming pioneers. You got that in the Young Peso. You got that in the PB Mexico. You know what I mean? Like, just seeing what these guys are doing and have done. You know what I mean? In such a short span of time, and just, again, really just taking heed to the responsibility that comes with just the work of being an artist. Even us, like, we're artists outside of being on these microphones. You know what I mean? And just being able to switch and jump into these hats, and I think it's dope, man. It's special. It's just one of those things where best advice that I could have, just in the midst of us doing this, like, we're not done at all. Like, this is just the intermission of the first season, right? Like, this is kind of like just our check-in, as we continue to edit the rest of these episodes, right? Because our whole thing was like, all right, let's record the episodes with the guests, and then, let's double back. Let's talk about what that experience has been like for us, kind of a midpoint right now. And then, after we finish the editing completely, let's talk about what, the entire journey has been like, and, what that post-production journey was like, just even getting those final edits down. But it just really the dopest part that came out of the conversation with my general manager today was just the understanding of the work that's at hand right now. This is just a real season in life to get up and grind, man. And, like, we took an intermission just in the midst of sitting here. Like, I took a nap in the midst of recording this. We took an episode, like a break in the midst of an intermission, like, to work on other episodes, right? Like, just knowing when to hit pause, man. But also just having that integrity to push yourself to get back in when it's time, and being ready when it's time. Even just being able to do that in a live interview and saying, all right, I'm going to step back and let bro jump in, and being able to just read the room. It's just a different kind of awareness you gotta have, man. It's a different kind of eye, it's a different kind of ear. But in all reality, it's just a different appreciation you have to have for presence. For real, just being aware of the moment that you're in fully. Being able to block out everything that's going on outside of what's really in front of you, whether it be work, whether it be a guest that you have to interview, whether it be, the dish you got to clean because you just ate, whatever it is, it's just being able to lock in and really just control the moment, and I think that's what's so interesting about, how we speak on C Buddy, because that's one of the, he has a song where I think it's called Moment, where he speaks on just that, owning the moment and just being able to reflect on how we've been able to do that with these guests has been really phenomenal. It's just been not just with the guests, but with each other, just in the midst of us creating our own magic. Even just for me being able to sit here and just, we're preparing, physical copies for Poster Boy right now. We preparing some merchandise for that, preparing that whole process. So just, one of the things I'm doing there is I'm getting my cousins involved. Like, I'm getting my younger cousin involved regarding the merchandise design there, as well as I haven't made this outreach yet, but I will, see about getting I recently just DJ'd a party for a young kid, man, and when I was DJing the last event that his mother worked at, he came up to me like, man, like, I want to spend this amount of money on some companies. I'm not gonna name the companies because I don't want them to get on my ass or get on our ass. But he was like, I'm gonna spend some money on these, and I'm like, nah, man, why don't you just invest in your own thing and design your own whatever, and just you could use that money that you have and flip it and invest in yourself. Taking what I learned from a TTG Louis, but really what I learned from my father first. Just that model of just creating a hustle for yourself, right? So just really just seeing what that's like, and just passing that down to the next generation, but being able to do that with the opportunities within the art that we created ourselves, just seeing that even just the opportunities that's being created within us having this podcast and this platform, just being in a space now where we're sitting down with guys and having conversations about, figuring out how to expand this thing and, just really not
how to add value.
Yeah, I think that it's dope to add value, and that's the way to think about it. But it's also realizing that, like, again, it goes back to the motto of it being bigger than us. Just being present in a moment is so much bigger than you, because that could create opportunities for this person, that person. And, you got to think about it. Like, even just music itself at times is just the capture of a moment, and it's just dope to just see how these things are just creating avenues and opportunities for everybody and it's a beautiful thing, man. It's like it's creating its own economy, man. And it's just a beautiful thing to watch. I was really just sitting back at work thinking on this, like, wow, we're really in positions where opportunities are being made as a result of the work that we're doing. It's people that are sitting back learning things and, just really supporting what we got going on. I pulled up on my uncle last night, and it was just funny because he ended up getting like a custom DJ Trouble Kid hoodie, which I have your merchandise in the truck too. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
But even just being able to expand into that on the side of this, right? Like, thinking about how we want to roll out merchandise for this, even just developing the name for the podcast along the way, right? These are all things that have happened just in the midst of us, just rolling this thing out. Like, we literally started a podcast without a name. As y'all listen, y'all gonna hear in some of the episodes how we start saying this, like we finally start addressing the podcast as such, like our name, and even just the way we introduce ourselves, developing that rhythm, right? Like, these are things that we learned over time, man, and it was dope to just see how patient the guests were with even us, and even just the excitement they had just coming into the space and seeing how we were excited to host them. You know what I mean? And even entering their space and seeing how they were excited to host us. You know, it was several points where we pulled up on the artists, you know, and that was special. So I look forward again to just revisiting these conversations as we sit and edit, but even more so just being able to revisit these conversations years down the road after we see what these guys go off and do, seeing what we go off and do. Like I said, you know, Poster Boy is preparing to drop on my end. What are some things you got coming up?
Man, we just getting in the studio, bro. I mean, I got a lot of stuff. I got a lot of songs that I'm working on. Me and Peso was working on a project together, so we don't have a name for it yet, but, you know, we just kind of cranking out songs. And I was talking with KB about this yesterday. You know, he's trying to roll out a project pretty soon, too. And he was telling me, I think it's going to be like 11, 12 songs, but what we were speaking on is, you know, a lot of the songs could have like a similar vibe, but you want to make sure everything is cohesive and everything kind of flows into the next thing, you know, and it's like one whole, you know, like unified experience.
Facts.
You know, so it's like I'm at the point where me and Peso are just cranking out songs, and then we're going to kind of probably have like a listening once we get enough songs, and then kind of see like, yo, like, what can we pull out of this to make a project? Or can we? Or do we have to keep creating? Like, and kind of just see where that takes us. The same thing with me. Like, I've just really been trying to create different kinds of music. Like, you know, after, you know, having our sit down with Mexico and Uncle Jay, you know, I've been thinking about singing, just doing something different, you know, like just like getting into a different kind of bag, you know, and even, you know, listening to KB stuff or listening to Doughboy and how he writes his raps. Like, I just really want to expand, and I really want to like push the envelope for myself. And, you know, just because I found one pocket where I might find something that works, I don't want to stick with that pocket. I want to keep experimenting and find different pockets, you know, and just keep growing as an artist, you know. So, like, that's kind of where I'm at with it. But you're definitely going to hear something soon. We're probably going to drop another single, and then we're probably going to do... The single's probably going to be Me and My Faith. I already dropped it on SoundCloud, but I got to go back to the studio and kind of get that right. Probably drop that, and then we'll probably do a project after that.
That's hard. And not only that, but you know what I thought about, too? Me and you got one together, you know, and Julian don't know this. Wizard don't know this, but we're going to take that and put that on Crescendo. You know what I'm saying? We're going to go ahead and just put that on there. We're going to go and step that right now. You know, hopefully by the time we finish editing all the episodes and we got the first season edited, maybe that's something we could premiere, you know, but... Yeah, man, that's something I'm looking forward to, you know, rolling out to the people. That was something that was dope, even just creating too, you know, even just kind of finding a moment to speak on that, being able to, you know, finally get that one out the way, right? The first one. I know that was something we spoke on for a very long time, you know, and right before we even started on the podcast, it just kind of happened, you know, the verse. You know, I actually had your verse probably for, I don't even remember for real. I think I had your verse for like a month, and then it just like I actually just had some time to kind of sit and get back in that space of writing, and that's been a thing for me too. You know, I wear many hats, but there's no excuse for practicing and working on your gift and your talent, and just even getting back in that space where, you know, just practicing with the pen again, you know, just practicing with freestyling again, just having fun, you know, really just finding the direction of what I want to do and what I want to sound, you know, what I want the sound to, you know, sound like for what I create next, you know. Yeah, just going back and just even recapturing what that moment was like to create that and reliving that moment of time for us, you know, not realizing that we were gonna, it's like, what was dope about that was being able to really kind of talk about what goes on, at least in my world of my mind, that's really because it's funny, me and Dog, I always ask these guys, like, what are the ways that you create songs? And he always say, well, I start with the topic first. I start with the hook. If the song has one, I start with the hook, And that was probably one of the first times where I just heard, the chorus first in my mind. And then it was just funny because I just sent that off to you, like, man, I think bro will really do something dope to this. And for you to, accomplish the assignment and get it back to me. And then I'm like, damn, this is hard. Like, send me back to the drawing board where I'm like, all right, how can I be myself? How can I deliver? How can I take the song to another level, but to a level that is still me, Because we speak on this friendly competition thing, right? And it was that. But at the same time, for me, it was that in the capacity of, like, how can I be the best version of myself? And I think that's what that's supposed to do. I think friendly competition is supposed to invite you to be the best version of yourself. And I only mention that because right now we got all this stuff going on in hip hop regarding competition and everything. And friendly competition is just the topic of it. And but I think the beauty of it is that it could, like, I think this is also what it could look like and sound like as well, in the capacity of, like, it's not one of those, like, bro had no idea in the midst of sending me that was on my mind, right? But at the same time, it's just that thing of, like, him just being himself, you raise the bar, which forced me to raise the bar. And I think that's what life is supposed to be, is just that notion of, like, damn, like,
it's inspiring.
It's like I'm inspired by what's around me, and that's just the reality of that, and I think that record is so special because it's true. It's really, like, it's true. It's funny because, like, that's really the tone kind of where I'm headed, where I'm going next musically, just kind of embodying a more truthful tone in my music and just stepping into that lane a little bit more. As I figure out what I want to do for my next project. Not just, I got some singles I kind of want to pop off after I roll out the next thing. But I would really just say, man, just really looking forward to just that part of things too. Being able to start rolling out a lot of this music, watching you roll out your music and get that going and stepping into that lane. And it's something else, bro, just kind of stepped into, which is pretty dope and exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing how he rolls that information out in the future. But just really seeing a growth in you, bro. You know what I mean? Man to man, brother to brother. Everybody doesn't accept that challenge of being pushed. You know what I'm saying? And it's dope and it's very inspiring because it just sets the tone. It's one of those things where it's like, for me, I'm like, man, bro, it's nothing that I don't. I'm saying this in front of them, but I'm really talking to my audience here. Where it's like, it's nothing that I don't ask, bro. Like, man, can you get this done, or can you look into this, or it's times where he'll send me something without even me even really asking about it or even thinking, like, damn, I didn't even think about that, but it's one of those things where bro just understands his assignment. You know what I mean? Like, you understand how to take initiative when I'm not even thinking about an area of something. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where I just want to say salute to you for the growth that you've been able to accomplish in such a short span of time. Rolling out your first single on DSPs, reaching the 60K subscribers on Twitch, just Rose going through a lot of dope things in life right now, and still just being able to focus on this podcast and show up. And when I'm talking about really show up, being able to accept the challenge task on site, you know, being able to just step up and it's just been dope, you know what I mean? And even for me, it's been, I would say this has probably been one of the more consistent things that we've done as friends, you know, as brothers. And I think it's dope because it's put us in a space where we're seeing each other more, we're seeing each other's families more. But we're also spending this time doing dope things and creating opportunities for ourselves and for others. I think that's magical, bro.
Facts.
That's really magical, and just it's just dope because even from the verse to the podcast itself is just like I say, bro. It's just dope to just see how you just being you. You set the tone for everything around you, bro. And I say that to you, man, because like it's easy to get like have all these guests on the show and give everybody else their flowers, but I think it's just important to have that moment here in this space between, you know, me and you where we you know, I at least just for me on my end, I get that to you, bro. You know, we talk off air about this a lot too, but nah, it's dope to really see your growth, man. And everybody can't sit up and say like, man, they grinding with their brothers and they figuring out, you know, they life with their brothers, man. And it's dope because we really could look back and look at this season and just say, man, like we grinding with these guys. You know what I'm saying? Like. Mm-hmm. We out here putting in some work. So,
I got to give you your flowers too, though, man, because, bro, like you really the backbone of this whole shit. You know, I'll be the one to say it, bro, because, like we had just said, when we were first starting out, you took more of a dominant space in this shit, and it's like, bro, like we needed that, you know, because I was in the position that I was in. I was kind of learning, readjusting, getting back to where I needed to be, you know, understanding the assignment so I could play the role I needed to play. But none of that would have been possible if I didn't have you there for guidance, you know what I mean, throughout this whole thing. Like, you know, support, you know what I mean? Like, whenever it's something that I might be missing, you be picking up the slack. And it's like, it's really a give and take, you know? So it's like, I got to tell you thank you, and I got to give you your flowers, bro, because none of this shit would be possible without you, bro. You know what I mean? And you talk about my growth, it's like, bro, you're growing just as much as me, bro. You know what I mean? Like, all these people that were going around, the reactions that they give you, the respect, you know what I mean, and everything. It's like, it's inspiring, bro, you know, and it inspires me to want to level up myself, you know what I mean, so I can match you, at the very least, so I can match you, you know what I mean, and just continue this journey, bro, because this is only the beginning, you know, and it's been an amazing journey up to this point, and it's like, that's what it's all about, though. You know, it's all about this right now that we doing, you know, this little thing that we got going, you know, and who knows where it's gonna go. But it's like, yo, I feel like we're doing it for all the right reasons. It's way bigger than us.
Way bigger than us.
You know,
as DJ Dolo says, it's bigger than Nino Brown. You know what I'm saying? And on that note, I'm going to leave y'all with this. Take a chance, man. Take a chance on something, you know, and see it through. Really, really take time to see it through. And no matter what you got to do, no matter what you got to, however long it takes, just really take time to see it through. Step by step, day by day, piece by piece. You know, the beautiful part about this experience is that, you know, we really took a chance on ourselves and on each other. And as a result of it, you know, people took time to invest in us. Y'all taking time to invest in us by even sitting here and listening to us. So my challenge for y'all would be to just take a chance on you and what's around you. You know what I mean? But start with you first. Look at the person in the mirror, and whether it's a podcast, whether it's a, you know, I was speaking with somebody yesterday, you know, she was saying, I need to start posting my nails more, my hair more on social media. You know what I mean? Whether it's that, just being more consistent with social media, whatever it is, the gym, whatever. Wizard, man, has been in the gym day in and day out. You know what I'm saying?
Got to, bro.
Day in and day out, you feel me? That's been dope to watch as well, watching his transformation in that capacity. You feel me? But just really taking a chance on you in some capacity, man. Go get some you today. You feel me? Go get some faith, and then go get some and apply it to you and figure out whatever it is you want to go do, because it's possible.
Seize the day.
It's possible, and it's not gonna be easy.
Nope.
Rome wasn't built in a day, so everything is not gonna come together exactly how you want it to, or it may come together exactly how you want it to in the beginning, and it may fall apart. But be prepared for what's to come. The good, the bad, the ugly, the in-between. Just be prepared for what's to come, and just love on yours in between. The best part about this is just being able to just spend the time, see the people in between, and really spend the time connecting with real people, doing real things, giving off real vibes in real time. So do you, man, and really watch the impact that you have. You know what I mean? It's not about how you... It's not about what you get back. It's about what you give, man, and just watch the impact of what that passes on, that energy, just seeing what that passes on, what that gives out to the people. You feel me? By you just giving you to you, just seeing what that gives to people and what that does for people, man. Just pay attention to that. And that's all I could leave you with, man. I'm your humble host, DJ Trouble Kid, and to my left we have...
Hey, it's Marquett Wizard in the building. You know what we doing.
And you have tuned into the intermission episode of the Family Business Podcast. Man, we out this piece.
Peace.